I was down, but now I'm up. Yeah, this all God, this ain't no luck. Yeah.
How you doing, boss?
What's going on, Big Chief?
Nothing much, man. It's so good to see you. I know you're in your cut. We were talking about that before we started recording, and your new obsession with Pinterest. Does this mean I need to buy Pinterest stock?
That's a good question because I liked Pinterest early on. They were actually the only social media platform that was at the last mile before a customer makes a purchasing decision. For example, if you go on Pinterest, and I think this was a big missed opportunity for them to where they didn't do something like Instacart where, you go on Pinterest, you look up a recipe for a scone or a Danish or something, and it shows you the laundry list of ingredients you need, but there's no last step to completing that transaction. You can't sync it with your local grocery store or Costco, and I think that was such a big missed opportunity that they just overlooked. And then on the other hand, they have a crap ton of advertisements on all the blog pages that just annoy the crap out of me. So I think after this cut, once I get over ogling food and just, drooling over every little dish that I'm imagining eating that I can't eat, I think I'm going to be over Pinterest again for a couple years. So
Fair enough. That's funny.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Exit starvation mode and then reassess.
Yeah. So it's been a wild day on the market today, by the way, with the CPI sell-off that we saw. Which I put out a short video expecting this sell-off, and it was my most disliked video ever. So I take that however you will, I guess. That just makes me laugh. I think it's so funny. I called pretty much exactly what's going to happen. And of course, it got tons of dislikes. My camera is going ballistic right now. All right, I think we're back. Anyways,
Yeah, you were
but
doing some flashing over there.
yeah, yeah. My camera didn't like the video either. So, how are you feeling right now, though? What is
Man,
got your attention?
yeah, it's been a wild week so far, wild couple weeks so far. And, just looking at some of the different tech stocks, energy names I follow, it seems like things are treading along just right. Uranium's kind of kicking it sideways. It was doing a little bit of a pullback. It looks like it's kind of starting to reverse a little bit, might continue a retracement, but we'll see how that plays out. A couple of the names that we were talking about in the Discord that I wrote about, I think a couple of weeks back on were UEC, Uranium Energy Corp, and CCJ, Cameco. And then, we can touch up a little bit on Energy Fuels, Quad U, for their rare earth elements play. But those three two names, CCJ and UEC, they seem to be turning around just nicely and doing a nice little
No,
breakout sesh.
energy and commodities have been making a big run lately, and it's been really interesting to see. Being the BCOM, the Bloomberg Commodity Index, picking up a lot, and I mean, it seems like it's showing us signs that inflation's going to come back. Although at the same time, the Fed says they feel like they've handled inflation, even though we're clearly not at their target. It seems like 3% is the new 2%. Get behind it, or I guess get blindsided by the market at this point.
No, yeah. And,
Yeah.
that's something I've been touting since we started having this inflationary issue. It's not a monetary policy challenge, it's a commodities-based challenge. And you see this across all the different producers where nobody is producing to capture market share anymore. This is literally the most common statement um, that these resource developers have discussed on their earnings calls. They're being capital disciplined, they're not overproducing, they're only assessing their highest quality of projects. And this isn't just in oil and gas. I spent some time yesterday for Friday's report on the Peach Pit, looking at a copper miner based out of Canada. And they're currently selling a few of their non-core assets like steelmaking coal and reducing down their zinc processing to bolster up their copper mining. However, they're not going to overproduce on copper. They're going to maintain a steady stream over time, despite all these macro tailwinds that are expected to play out over the next couple of years. So, I just don't understand how investors, how analysts, how the Fed just completely got blindsided by this when literally every commodity producer has been saying it and touting it, including OPEC plus. It's like, the fuck are you looking at? you know?
What does your vision of retirement look like? CWR Private Client Group was voted Best Financial Advisor by St. Louis Magazine. Call now for a free consultation. CWR Private Client Group, creating and preserving wealth.
You learn this rudimentary economics term that the monetary supply determines inflation. Well, it's not just the supply or not just monetary supply that determines inflation too. It's the stuff you buy with that money. How much of that is on the market? The less there is and the more money there is, the higher the price. Even if there was the same amount of money on the market right now and fewer commodities, the price would still be higher. We'd still have inflation. It's like, what target are you guys looking at here? And how thick-headed can you be? This is common sense almost.
Man, I had an inclination of what you just said, but it was really nice to hear that reminder from you. Get my head right in the right place, thinking about this stuff, the whole supply issue. And that's going to be a huge issue for uranium, was probably going to cause a further price squeeze as well. And you like in USUEC, that's a great name. You mentioned that in the Discord today, and as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, damn it, I was supposed to be keeping an eye on that one. I was supposed, it's on my watch list, and I hadn't looked at it in a minute. I've been watching CCJ and a few others a little bit, but there's also just so much activity going on in the and airlines and AI names, and I've been watching Tesla like a hawk. I've been buying up shares of Tesla. Um, do you have any thoughts on Tesla at all?
I actually just released a report on Ford a couple days ago. On Tesla, it seems the universal argument is that consumer demand for electric vehicles is just waning down. It's still at pretty high levels on a year-to-year growth rate, but that 80% growth that Ford saw in their EV growth, it just the nominal figures. It does not compare to hybrids or internal combustion engine vehicles. They're just not as popular. They're not ramping up as expected. And I think consumers are showing that they do not demand fully electric vehicles. They demand plug-in hybrids. It's it's where the market's going. I think even the Biden administration is acknowledging that now, since they loosened up their requirements for tailpipe emissions and whatever the term is, they're averaging between sales of EVs and internal combustions and hybrids. So I think even our politicians are noticing that consumers just don't want fully electric vehicles yet.
Yeah. No, I think that's super fair. My thesis would be tear it apart if you want, or if you're welcome to. Um, with these commodities, like we've talked about, with the comeback of uranium and stuff, I think the framework to support the mass adoption of EVs will get better over time. And at the
Mhm.
same time, with the lack of oil production and also potential war, I think those prices get more expensive over time as well, which could bring interest back to EVs and stuff for consumers. And then in additionally, Tesla just had all these competitors basically drop out of the race, like Ford and GM, and they're all throwing in the towel on EVs. Suddenly, Tesla's like the last man standing. And I just think that maybe hybrids will continue to be popular. Definitely, as we've talked about, when we had Bloomberg in the podcast, hybrids are considered the most economic. But I think I think that's okay. I think the space in the marketplace is big enough. I'm not looking for Tesla to take over the entire automobile industry. I just want them to have the dominant lead in EVs. And I think, you're also seeing other parts of their business are doing well and having a leadership role in self-driving. If when that comes through, I think if self-driving comes out with the price that the stock is currently is right now, you get self-driving here in the next few months, it could easily double from here, in my opinion, just off the hype alone, off the new pathways and avenues that opens up as well. If you want to start creating your own Uber pathway, it's going to be some legalities and it's going to be a bumpy ride to get there, but I think the excitement will definitely be present for something like that. So I'm just seeing this as a buying opportunity. It's had a lot of blood. It's taking the beating I think it deserves, and I think it's time to take the step back in on this one. And I'm also seeing, I'm also from a non-fundamental viewpoint, just from the social aspect, I'm seeing some of these reports for Tesla to go to like $70 for 140s next, and then it could go all the way to 75, and it's never going to come back. EVs are done. These all are bottom signals to me. The only thing that really worries me is the hydrogen vehicles.
Mm.
If EV
I wouldn't be so
becomes,
worried on that though.
yeah, that's the other thing. The more I look into it, the more I'm like, I don't know. I still
Not
wonder that.
that's
Yeah, go
not
ahead.
that's not not that's not going to happen, but more so you have to consider the market for hydrogen fuel cells. So it's not going to be your, consumer based automobile. It's going to be Class 8 trucks that's primarily going to target first. So I wouldn't put too much weight into hydrogen just yet. It could take a switch and flip over, but I think that's a bit far of a reach as far as consumer vehicles go.
Yeah, I think it's really far out there. Maybe sometime in the future, but it does make me wonder if EV will be a stepping stone to what eventually will be the most popular. I mean, probably 100 years from now, everyone's got like little nuclear reactors in the car or something crazy, fusion power or something. But
Just
yeah,
don't get in an accident.
yeah, yeah. They'll
But
figure
no,
that out eventually. Yeah,
oh yeah, but no, to kind of counter that hydrogen argument as well. Um, a lot of energy producers, including Exxon, amongst others, are petitioning the Biden administration to loosen up their green hydrogen rules under the IRA. So, given the rules, I don't know the full details about it. It's a little bit above my pay grade, but from what I understand, they are so stringent on how you produce hydrogen to receive these tax credits that it is near impossible for any hydrogen producer or potential hydrogen producer to receive these credits. Like, I think you need to be 100% or a certain percentage dependent on renewables, which doesn't exist for because hydrogen,
genuinely.
it's not, hydrogen needs power to be produced. If
Yeah,
you're going to use those electrolyzers to separate water into, its two elements, it needs power to produce power, and it's not the most efficient, I guess, method. So it's really interesting dynamics, really interesting economics behind it. There's a few companies, few names that are in it, like Fuel Cell is doing this in partnership with Exxon. Nexter Energy is doing this. New Fortress Energy is doing this. And from what I understand, a lot of the drive for it is to produce ammonia or chemicals, and that seems to be the primary partnerships for these hydrogen producers, not necessarily transit.
yeah. Sorry. I just got I
Sorry.
was
That's me spewing a lot more information than was
no,
requested.
no, but that was really cool to hear. I haven't heard some of those company names in a very long time. I uh I remember trading fuel cell back in the day. It used to be a market favorite. That stock I remember 100x at one point from like $3 to 10x to like $3 to $30. But anyways, I got a text message and now I'm completely distracted. Um,
Oh, well,
I'll get back. I'll get back.
I
Let
can
me.
talk about QuantumScape for a minute if you like. I just released a
Oh,
short report on them a couple days or yesterday.
before we talk about QuantumScape, um, what do you think of my Tesla thesis? You had some comments on the hydrogen part, but just
Hmm.
because there's going to be a lot of interest in this, do you want to wait and maybe do a Substack report on it that maybe viewers can go read if they'd like to?
I will have to refresh and update on Tesla. It's been a couple months, but from what I'm seeing, unless they can get their $25,000 car on the market, I think it's going to be a very uphill battle, especially with the inflation report we got today. So, as you're aware, as everybody on the Discord is aware, and my subscribers on the Peach Pit are aware, I do not believe the Fed is going to be cutting interest rates this year. And as a result, that will create significant headwinds for financing or continuing to acquire financing for large purchases like a new vehicle. So I don't expect many consumers to be, breaking the bank on a new 60 whatever $1,000 Tesla. If they can get a nice new $30,000 hybrid that gets the job done on the same fuel economy as a Tesla, which I think what is it? Not the Department of Transportation or one of those groups. They suggested the average American round trip from home to work to home is like 40 miles, which is the average electric side of a plug-in hybrid. So, at the end of the day, you're getting the same fuel economy as you would driving a Tesla at half the price. Plus, you're not range bound and you don't have that range anxiety if you were to run out of power. And then at the same time, you don't have to wait an hour in line or an hour to charge your car or however long it takes to charge your car. I think it's down to like 20 or 30 minutes to get from 20 to 80% these days for fast charging. Um, but that's negating if there are other drivers waiting to use that charging station before you. And then, in a lot of cases, you have to schedule a block of time to charge your vehicle if you're using a public charger. So there's just a lot of planning and like minute details, a lot of logistics that go into owning an electric vehicle that I don't think a lot of people think through when talking about the excitement behind electric vehicles. It's like when I talk to people about meal planning, how many people actually want to spend, 2, 3, 4 hours a week cooking so they can be healthier. They'd rather go get a Big Mac down the street for $1. So what makes you think
Yeah.
they're gonna want to schedule an hour wait at a Tesla charger so they can get some fuel in their vehicle? That doesn't make too much sense to me. People are too lazy to do that. I think investors give the common folk too much credit when it comes to rational thinking, and I don't think it's gonna play out as they anticipate.
Okay, that's fair.
Sorry, I don't mean
Okay.
to offend anybody on that last statement, but it's true. I mean, I don't rationally think a good 70% of the time, only when I'm working, only when I'm at the gym. Otherwise, it's zombie mode, going through the motions.
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's fair. It's fair. Um, so and you mentioned also QuantumScape. Um,
Yes,
can you give me a 5-second refresher on QuantumScape? It's QS, right? I remember this name so well,
correct,
but I don't remember what they
correct.
do. Do they make batteries? Yes.
So they are prototyping batteries. So their whole
Okay,
play is the solid state lithium battery. I don't
that's
know the
right.
science behind it, but it's a solid state. It holds a better charge. It's supposed to
Right.
charge from 20 to 80 in 15 minutes flat. And they have
Awesome
I
tech.
guess, loose partnership with Volkswagen as well as Ford for potential supply deals. So the latest update is they completed their A0 battery, which is the prototype for um, what's to be the production battery. It's the final model. They sent it out to 6 OEMs, Ford and Volkswagen included. So they're currently going through their testing phase to see if this battery, is worth its salt. So I have a lot of problems with QuantumScape. So if it's successful, that would be a pretty cool deal. It's going to be a more efficient, more effective battery that, can essentially be available for all the different automotive OEMs. You don't have to worry about crossover technology and any challenges with like compatibility or things like that if they can secure all these different deals that they're working on. My challenge is that they've essentially been in the development phase since, going public through a SPAC and have not actually had any revenue. They don't have any manufacturing processes or facilities in place for scale. So it's like they're doing the chicken before they have the egg. They're selling the chicken and then they're going to go back and make the egg. And what I expect to happen with QuantumScape is that their first deal is going to be a total blowout to where they're going to go back, rush through building out their facility for manufacturing these batteries and realize, oh crap, it is way more expensive to do this at scale. And we need to now source battery material in mass, which I have seen no signs of any deals, any partnerships in sourcing lithium. We need the capacity, we need the personnel to work these facilities, we need to get the machines in. We need to do all of these different steps in order to produce at the mass quantities that are required by major automotive OEMs. We're not looking at a Rivian how many vehicles did Rivian squeak out? A couple thousand last year or something. It was embarrassingly small. It's not like we're talking that. We're talking, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of vehicles potentially. So I just have a problem with that. They haven't had any actual manufacturing experience. They hired a new CEO or promoted a new CEO who has worked in chip foundries and other technology firms prior to. So maybe he can help address this, but at the same time, it's just something this company has never done before. So I think scaling is going to be a major challenge. And I think they're underestimating how long it's going to take for this ramp up process. They're starting low volume production of their battery this year and ramping up to higher volume production next year. And it's like, is that feasible? Do you guys actually have the source materials to do this and the facilities to do this? Or are you just going to be, doing it one by one? Like how is this going to work? So that's one of my problems. The next problem is that they are just burning a hole in cash. They mentioned they have like 7 quarters of cash left on the balance sheet before they're insolvent. So, the race is on. They have under 2 years to go from 0 to 100. And I just don't think they can do it. They're either going to need to be bought out or, they're
Who's gonna
insolvent.
buy that? What are you even buying? You're not even buying anything.
You're buying
Are
the
you?
technology. If it's proven to work, you're buying
It's
the
not even
IP.
proven to work though. Oh, geez.
It's in the process of being proven to work, so you never know. And then on the other
Yeah.
hand, you have CATL, the Chinese battery manufacturer. They're pretty close to having a solid state battery. They have a semi-solid state. It's like, for the sake of argument, is that good enough? It's
Yeah.
like I was looking at this company, GSI Technology, the other week, who is developing a storage chip that is supposedly going to replace the necessary capacity for GPUs. And it's like, who cares? They don't have the scale, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the relationships with the hyperscalers or the OEMs. And, it may not even be necessary. Having the best thing the best novel model isn't always what you need in your environment. You know, good enough is oftentimes good enough. And if I know anything about the automotive industry, good enough is usually good enough. You hear about, you know, those old airbag stories on risk management. We need to spend X amount of dollars to, you know, replace all these airbags that are faulty. Or, you know, potentially 10 people can die. We'll do the legal matters, do a couple PR circuits, and we'll be good as new, which is how they went around with it. But, you know, good enough is probably going to be good enough for batteries for now.
Yeah, good enough didn't work out so well for Boeing, but I
I don't think that was good enough. I think that was a detriment. And no offense to people that are into this DEI shit, but I think that was a DEI issue too. We need
Well,
to bolster margins because they've been having issues for years now. You know, it's not a new phenomenon. It's just new in the public eye. They when was it? Was it 2018, 2019? They had two planes essentially nosedive. I mean, they were international flights with, you know, foreign pilots. So, you know, it could have been some DEI related user error, but at the same time, it's like they've been having challenges for a while now. I don't know if it was quality or user error, but it seems like
yeah.
they've been having some problems for a good number of years.
Well, I mean, it also makes you. I'm kind of sidetracking us. All that stuff about uh QuantumScape was very interesting, by the way. Um, Made me insanely bearish. I didn't know the full story there. I'd only heard the company before, and my God, that's awful. What also seems bearish, but also kind of makes me pause about Boeing is this you have to also step back and realize, man, for the most part, they literally don't get anything wrong on these planes, and they haven't for years. Because anytime imagine if there was a major
Hmm.
headline every time the car had an issue,
Oh
you
no,
know,
absolutely.
right? Like, as for as many that are out and about, it's not a lot, but it's so scary and terrifying to think that like you're up in the air, there's nothing you can do, and the thing just stops working or something major falls off of it. And that it's like it's terrifying thought. So like the
Hmm.
bar is so high set for perfection for these companies that it makes it so much more important that there is no issues. But it also is very clear that something has deteriorated within management because suddenly we've gone from basically near perfection to user errors like the ones that you've mentioned. And even on the safety side, suddenly, like, I mean, shit's falling off. You can't even put a door together. Like something
Oh yeah.
happened. Something's going on.
Loose bolts. And you know,
Yeah.
this could even be not necessarily a Boeing challenge too. It could be you know, airport maintenance. Because how often do they aren't they supposed to check those planes every day in between flights or whatever? Like, you know, refuel, check and make sure everything's attached properly, you know. Like it could be not just a Boeing challenge, it could be a Southwest challenge or United challenge or whoever. You know, I know Southwest was the latest one. I don't remember who the other um,
Yeah.
airline was with the other challenges, but it could very well be their maintenance staff or airport maintenance staff or whoever's staff it is. You know, who's supposed to be checking the planes for quality assurance.
Yeah.
It's like if you go to Six Flags, they check those every morning, make sure every bolt is tight, make sure people aren't going to be falling out the restraints on those roller coasters. You know, are they not checking the planes daily because of short staffing?
Yeah.
Because there's honestly like these these I don't want to call them minor errors, but like these not fully plane crash errors, just shit falling off the plane errors. It seems to be a phenomenon that's only been in the last few years, right?
Right.
Probably since COVID. So I'd imagine it could potentially be short staffing at airports or airlines. Because
Well,
a lot of them were furloughed and never came back after 2020, if I recall correctly.
that's an interesting hypothesis. Although the board did force the CEO out. I'm pretty sure at the
Yeah.
end.
Well,
Yeah. So
it's their
like,
planes. It's like if
yeah,
yeah, if GM had some shitty track record of, I don't know, all their Silverados just caught on fire one day, he'd probably resign too. Their CEO would probably resign too.
yeah,
I think it's more publicity, more save some face. Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, the
true.
CEO, it's on your shoulders.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Something goes wrong. Board needs to blame someone.
Exactly.
Save reputation. Oh, we got rid of him. Everything's fine now.
Exactly.
Although you hear big investors like Bill Ackman say that just replacing leadership can do a lot more than you think it can, even though I think there's probably a structural issue there at Boeing, but that's a whole different conversation. Um, like you're mentioning, just more structural issue with maybe even the airports. What else
Mhm.
do you want to talk about, man? What else is piquing your interest? You want to end the show with a little bit of commodities? I know you mentioned some raw minerals, and I've been seeing names like gold, go parabolic, palladium. I've seen lots of headlines about that. People think it's bottomed out. Lithium's also look. Some people are saying that that's bottomed out. Any of those or something else? Whatever. What's on your mind for those? That's the area sector.
Natural gas has been drawing my interest again. I was kind of
Really?
moderate. I was very moderate with them coming into 2024 and looking at the strip prices going through the year. It definitely looks like an appealing market again. It's not quite dead. You have all these independent producers like Southwestern, Chesapeake, Comstock, Range Resources, all these guys that have cut production domestically to try to provide some support to the price. Exxon had announced that they're no longer, or they're going to be reducing their percentage of production for dry gas, not necessarily cutting back on dry gas, just reducing the overall mix of how much dry gas they produce. So there's been a lot of production coming offline for natural gas in the last what is it, 4 months or so. And um, with export terminals being put on pause or approvals for new export terminals being put on pause, that kind of drove a knife through part of my thesis on the Haynesville basins. But um, we are seeing some strong strengthening of the prices going into the end of the year. And my from what I've been hearing, and it completely makes sense to me, is that with the renaissance of generative AI, and I've done a lot of work over the last 3 4 months over this area, over energy, over Gen AI and related infrastructure, is that as you're building out more capacity in the data centers, you're going to be drawing up a lot more power. Looking at like Bitcoin miners, for example, their core discussion on their earnings calls are how are we connected to the utilities and what's our cost of power? It it's a very critical need to keep these data centers up and running. They need a secure source of energy that's not going to, have minor brownouts that you might see with renewables if it's not shining outside, if it's kind of doom and gloomy today in Missouri, or if it's just not windy like it is today in Missouri. So, you need that reliable energy source, and natural gas. It's clearly one of the most reliable energy sources. It's absolutely the most abundant resource in the United States that we can utilize to fuel our grid, fuel our data centers. So I think there's going to be some sharpened demand across natural gas until we get these nuclear generators up and running, and those aren't going to be coming up until 2030, 2035,
Yeah.
the SMR, small modular reactors. So we have some time for natural gas to really play out. The only argument I ever see against oil and natural gas is that it's being phased out. And contrary to popular belief, the IEA, the biggest, God, how can I put it without sounding like a terrible person? Um, they for some reason they just don't favor oil and gas anymore. The IEA,
IEA.
yeah,
What is IEA?
they're let me make sure I'm gonna
Okay.
say it right. The International Energy Agency, so not to be
Okay.
confused with the EIA, which is domestic. So this is a French agency. So
Okay.
yeah, for some reason they're just very against oil and natural gas. They under forecast demand and consistently have increased their demand for forecast for the year. So there's a pretty big imbalance for oil, it looks like, which it's a nice driver for domestic producers. And on top of that, with OPEC and now Russia reducing their production or maintaining their production cuts and Russia playing into it, could get worse, could get way more expensive for us. So, but
Hmm.
anyways, on the natural gas side, uh, you know, I see a big opportunity for powering data centers, for having a reliable grid and renewables. They're kind of doing an okay job, not really. Coal that's projected to be phased out. I have a report from probably 6, 7 months ago about coal being phased out. I'm not gonna try to recall the figures on how many gigawatts are going to be phased out over the next decade, but it's pretty significant. And natural gas, it's the only viable resource that we can get in place in the near term before these coal plants are fully decommissioned. Uh, renewables, you need copper. Copper is being underserved in the market. I've This Friday I'll be releasing a report on a Canadian copper miner. So, just keep your eyes open for that in your inbox. If you're subscribed to the Peach Pit, if not, subscribe to the Peach Pit on Substack. But we're at significantly low inventory levels of copper. We're down to something like 3 days of inventory, down from something like 17 days of inventory on the exchanges. So there's a pretty big deficit. And with the building of data centers, you're going to need a lot of copper. With the building of wind farms, you're going to need a lot of copper. With the building of electric vehicles, you're going to need a lot of copper. Essentially, everything that is electrified needs a ton of copper. If we're going to be hardening the grid and doing all these infrastructure projects that our president in chief is suggesting that we're doing, we're going to need a ton of copper. So, demand is there, supply is relatively constrained. And I think, for energy, for commodities, and tying back to inflation that we discussed at the beginning of this call, it's probably going to get significantly more expensive for everybody.
What do you like to play for copper?
So
Matt, what's your favorite pick? What's your favorite copper pick? Do you have a favorite copper pick?
I like the company that I'm going to be presenting on Friday.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, just I guess I could hint at them. It's Tech Resources Limited, ticker TECK.
yeah. Okay.
I'm expecting, blue sky, close to 30% upside potential, on a more conservative near term, closer to 15% upside on the equity. They pay a small dividend. They're selling off their coking coal businesses, raising something around $10 billion from that. They're going to be increasing their share buybacks as a result. They Going into the end of fourth quarter, they had sold a portion of their coking coal business to Nippon Steel, who is in the news with their acquisition of U.S. Steel. But they sold it to Nippon Steel for a couple $1 billion or $1.5 billion and immediately increase the share buybacks by $500 million. So, multiply that by a couple times and we can expect a nice little sum of a bigger buyback. And, they could deploy that capital elsewhere too. They could buy other mines, they could expand production, they could, you know, buy assets, sit on the assets and wait for copper to have its big upswing. It's not looking at any really big moves in the next year or two for copper prices, but it's still early. We still have time
Yeah.
for the market to react, and futures don't always tell the story. They just kind of hint at where people think it's going to go.
Yeah, they really do. That's for sure. And I think that's also really a lot of insights. I've been hearing a lot of interest in copper, but I've actually never traded copper in my life. I know it's a big key economic indicator for manufacturing health and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was really solid. I think it's a good point to call a good stopping point. If I could stop stumbling over my words.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Monty, for coming out. As he's said, everyone should definitely go check out the Peach Pit. And if you want to hang out with us in the Discord, make sure to check the link down below. Visit my website. No direct links to the Discord anymore. Private community. And we'll talk to you more in there. Have a good one, folks.